Hi, this is Kimberly Reuter, business advisor and supply chain expert, and welcome to my podcast, The Morning Mood, all things supply chain leadership and life. Today, I have an extra special surprise for you. I have my good friend, Marc Zazeela, with me. Marc works in supply chain in the postal industry, and we have been kind of partnering on and off for the last 5 years. We met through a sales coach through LinkedIn about 5 years ago. And I am excited to bring him here. He has so much amazing experience in the supply chain industry and in life. He's done some pretty great stuff. We both live on the East Coast. We both love sailing. We both love being on the water. And that is what has kept us together all these 5 years. So, Marc, welcome. I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you, Kim. I'm really glad to be here. Uh, Supply chain is something that I've been involved in for a long time. Totally, totally serendipitously. I responded to an ad in the New York Times a long time ago when I was out of work, had been out of work for about 6 months, and had responded to an ad in the New York Times in the classified section, which probably doesn't even exist anymore, not on paper anyway. And they were looking for uh, business development or sales help for a company that specialized in international mailing. There was no such thing as international e-commerce back then. Supply chain was
Oh,
manufacturer to
great.
wholesale to retail, and really
Yep.
nothing much else. So,
At best, you had a catalog. You had like the Spencer's catalog or something. Right. You may order
right,
off a catalog. Right. That was
yeah,
it. There was no websites back then. Just horse
didn't
and buggy. Right.
didn't exist. And so the company I work for is not in business anymore, but they did mail exclusively internationally. And it was direct mail, it was catalogs, it was magazines, anything that you can think of putting in the mail were things that we did. So I
Mhm.
kind of cut my teeth in that industry and stayed on there for quite a while. Uh, the company was acquired by a large conglomerate after I've been there maybe about 10 years, I guess, or 8 years. And the conglomerate wanted to create an international mailing division within their company. They were a company involved in mail and mail processing and equipment and things like that. And they wanted to get into the logistics end of the business as well. And it worked. They purchased the company that I worked for and four others that were in the same space. And they were all relatively small, privately held companies, and they put it all together to create an entity that was really revolutionary at that time. And this was in the late 1990s, I guess it was, uh, and stayed on there for about 5 years. The public entity mismanaged the business to the point that it was losing money, and they ended up selling off pieces of it for like 30% of what they paid 5 years.
Oof.
So
So,
it was
Mark, what
big.
what made it revolutionary? What about them bringing all of those individual companies together made that revolutionary? Was that the first time people were kind of consolidating parcel
Oh yeah,
providers? Like, what was that?
it was really Kim. It was that was when the M&A was hot back then, and this big corporate entity wanted to be involved in what they saw as a growing vertical, international mail. There was a handful of companies that were doing it. They were all small, privately held. These guys were in the mail industry from the equipment side, and they felt that they needed a service to provide to some of the same customers that they were selling their equipment to. And their customers were companies like printing companies and letter shops and mail houses and so forth, because it was all
Nice.
still focused on mail.
Yeah.
Right around that time, I guess, was when the internet started to become a thing, and
Hmm.
people were starting to buy online, but there was still more about catalogs. So we actually
Yeah.
created a service that was designed for shipping small parcels international. And it was almost 100% through USPS, through IPA or International Priority Air Mail. It was the only service available that would go to pretty much every country in the world. there weren't a lot of hubs around. There weren't a lot of consolidators. There weren't, different freight forwarders that could do this for you at that time. So
Hmm.
we relied on USPS and International Priority Airmail for mail distribution. And parcels back then were treated as mail because they're short of going UPS or FedEx, which was really expensive.
Yep.
There was no other way to do it.
Hmm.
And they chose this type of service for low value goods. FedEx was a great option to ship to somebody in Europe, let's say. But if you wanted to ship like a t-shirt that cost $12 to somebody in London, it would cost you $30 to ship it and nobody's going to buy it. We could mail it through the post office for about $6. So then it kind of made sense and people would buy. So
Hmm.
there was a little bit of online selling going on back then, but there was still more people purchasing through catalogs because
Yep.
we were mailing catalogs internationally on
Yep.
behalf of the merchants.
Hmm.
And so people get the catalog in the mail and they place an order. So somebody had to figure out how to get the
How do you get
products
it to
there.
them? Yeah. Back old the good old mail order catalog.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
for some of the youths who may be tuning into this, way back in the day, we didn't have e-commerce. And you got a catalog in the mail at some frequency, like the Sears Roebuck catalog. That was the one that just rocked your world, and that was for you. That one was that annual? I don't think you got that one more than once. I think
I
it was
think it was an
yearly.
annual. I think
That
so.
was an
Yeah.
annual catalog. But then you had like there was all kinds of mail order catalogs. LL Bean started in and Land's End started in mail order. Those were some of the early mail order clothing providers. There was no Amazon, there were no marketplaces. You went to the person who made it and they shipped it to you. That's how it worked. So yeah, so this is very early before we had any of the fancy parcel solutions that we have today.
So here we are. Let's fast forward a bit.
Yeah.
Amazon became a thing. They
Yeah.
started
Who
selling
knew?
books online. There was nothing else but books
Mhm.
when the company started,
Yep.
and little by little, as they grew, the online in business industry grew with it, and created a
Mhm.
lot of different opportunities. So, like I said, the corporate entity had mismanaged the business. They pretty much shuttered it, and I went to work for the company I'm with now about 15 years ago,
Mhm.
just when things were starting to heat up in e-commerce. And
Yeah.
they felt they really wanted to be involved in this. It was a company also that had cut their teeth on international mail. So they had a lot of the logistics were already in place to get things delivered around the world. If you think about it, the carriers are the same. You're going to put things on a plane to get mail delivered in Europe. Well, you can put some packages on the same plane. Or to go to Japan, you can put the package on the same plane to Japan. So we started out very, very with very crude services at the time. There was no tracking available. There was no visibility whatsoever. You kind of put it in the mail and cross your fingers and hope that it got there.
Yeah.
And amazingly, the evolution of e-commerce in the last 15 years has been astounding. When you think about how business has evolved, it's grown from virtually nothing into a multi-billion dollar industry
Oh,
in less
trillion
than
dollar.
15 years,
Yeah, it's
which is
huge.
incredible, really
Right.
incredible.
It is
Uh,
interesting as we talk about how e-commerce has really driven all of these logistics solutions that we would not otherwise not have, right? We would not have all these parcel, international, cheap, quick solutions if we didn't have companies like Amazon sending international packages. We would still be back to pallets and then you'd get it when you got it and it was a 2 to 3 week transit time. And seriously, and we were talking about 15 years ago, it's honest. 15 years ago, when you ordered an international package, unless you were doing it on Amazon, you probably didn't get a tracking number. And if you did, you ended up with 4, right? Because you had one from like where it came from, and then the consolidator, and then like you had to have like 4 or 5 different tracking numbers. So just to kind of level set for everybody who's listening in, the last 15 years, what Mark is talking about has been amazing rapid growth, specifically in the courier and parcel industry.
and so here we are with the
Yeah.
huge volume coming in and out of the U.S. and every country pretty much is involved to some extent, whether they're consumers,
100%.
whether they're producers, whether they're merchants. It's a worldwide industry, I guess, that has
Yeah.
evolved to the point we are today. And it's created. Think about the industries that it has created. There's all kinds of technology that is used today that wasn't even a thought 5 years ago.
Mm-mm.
It's created businesses. There were no such things as direct to consumer 3PLs. There was no
No,
duty and tax calculation software. Uh, there was no
I bet that.
tracking software.
Uh,
None of this stuff exists. So
no.
the number of businesses that e-commerce has spawned have been incredible. And just here in the US,
Yeah.
the opportunity to become a brand is very real in a very short period of time. Just a real quick story for you. A customer that I had years ago in the cosmetics industry had started out very simply. She was the woman that I know was a homemaker. She had two kids, two young kids in school, husband off working at some chemical company or something like that. And one time for Mother's Day, he had come home with a gift basket of cosmetics from Estee Lauder or something like that. And he gave it to his wife for Mother's Day, and she looked at it and said, "Okay, this is really nice, but I don't like some of the products, or I don't use some of these products. I'll keep the ones that I like, and I just won't. I'll give them away, give the rest away." But then she realized that she heard about people selling stuff on eBay at the time.
Hmm.
Okay, eBay was becoming a big thing back then, and she says, "Okay, well, I got the stuff here. I've bought stuff on eBay before, so maybe I can sell something on eBay." And she took the pictures, she set up shop in her kitchen at her kitchen table, took the pictures, set up her account on eBay, put the 5 or 6 items that she didn't want anymore up for sale, and sold them in less than a day for more than what they cost. She said, "Okay, that was pretty easy." So she had some other stuff lying around the house, and next day she did it again. Sold it just like that, real quick. So now the wheels are turning a little bit. And she says, "Okay, I've got time. The kids are at school during the day, and I've got a lot of time on my hands. What can I do that's interesting and I can make some money at the same time?" So she started by buying liquidated stock in cosmetics, closeouts, and things like that
Hmm.
at huge discounts,
Hmm.
having them delivered to her home,
Hmm.
putting them back on her eBay store, and kind of recycling them at a profit. Um, Very quickly, she started making some pretty good money working by herself. Uh,
Hmm.
2 years later, Kim, she had taken this fledgling business and turned it into, about a couple $100,000 a year in sales revenue, sitting in her kitchen, just putting up pictures,
Yep.
wrapping boxes, shipping them out. I mean, now she's got a real brand and she does a lot more business than that now, but it took
Yeah.
less than 5 years. And I think that
Yeah.
there are lots of stories like that, I'm sure, that
Yep.
are out there, and lots more opportunity for somebody, just a little bit of creativity and some ingenuity. And here we are. It's pretty incredible to watch that happen. And we see it a lot now.
Yeah. And I think you bring up something that's really interesting. And I was gonna touch on this as well, is that you talk about sort of the cottage industry that e-commerce has created around the shipping software and last mile and middle mile and marketing software and all that kind of stuff. But also it did open the doors for all those little mom and pops, right? So suddenly they can have a voice and an audience as big as Amazon if they're willing to spend the marketing bucks and all that kind of stuff. But I think that really gave a lot of opportunity to people who would otherwise not have had opportunity to start a business, myself included. Okay, wonderful getting to know you. Thank you. Super interesting to hear about how parcel and courier has grown, along with e-commerce and how e-commerce has helped it. So the big question of the day is, what is the biggest lesson that you have learned, either professionally or personally, and how did you apply that to your success?
Well, I'm a huge reader, and I
Okay.
like to read what some people call self
All right.
help material. Others are, personal development. You can call it what you want. I'm a Dale Carnegie fan, and I'm a Zig
Love
Ziglar
Dale.
fan.
Mhm.
So there are two. Can I give you two things instead of one?
Sure.
And
Yep.
they're both related. One thing that Zig Ziglar said um, a lot, I think, and this may have even been his catchphrase, if you will. He said, and I'll paraphrase it because I can't quote it, but he said, "Help enough people get what they want, and you will get what you want." So it's about
Mhm.
helping people,
Yeah.
becoming a partner of theirs, and helping them find whatever it is they're looking for and get where they want to go.
Mhm.
And then Dale Carnegie, my other favorite, his first book was written in 1935, I think it was How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Mhm.
And he truly believed in putting people first. Uh,
Mhm.
he tells lots of stories in that book, and I've read the book probably 5 or 6 times. But the overriding theme is about being good and helpful and genuine and honest with people, and being interested in what they're interested in, and they will
Mhm.
be interested in you.
Yeah.
It's the two concepts are older than dirt, if you think about it.
You are.
But when you when you talk to sales trainers and coaches and stuff today, they have all these new ways of doing things, but they're based on those two concepts.
Yeah.
They're as relevant as they were then today as they were back then.
You're absolutely right, and I talked about this in a previous podcast, like, I hate all that new marketing term crap that they put on everything. Like, I was talking about just-in-time inventory. JIT, that's what we've been calling it for decades, right? Just-in-time inventory. Now I hear it has all these other bizarro names that make absolutely no sense, but they're super fancy. I'm like, "It's still just-in-time inventory." But so to apply that same philosophy to what you just said, which is, yeah, all of these same philosophies about business development, relationship development are kind of still based on those basics from back in the 30s. And it's really about putting people first. And it's hard to do sometimes. Sometimes we get caught up in our own mess. Like, I'm never going to preach to you from the podium of perfect. I have fallen off the horse more times than I probably spent more time on the ground than actually on the horse, if I'm going to be honest with you.
I've seen
Um,
that
so
picture, Tim.
well, I'm sure we could come up with a graphic for that. But yeah, so people first. So tell me, these are really great lessons. How have you applied these to your success?
Well, in my the work that I do today is for an international shipping company. Okay,
Mhm.
my role is in sales and customer acquisition. So I'm
Mhm.
working with brands and with 3PLs and shippers and what have you to help them get their goods distributed direct to their consumers all over the world. So,
Right.
you know, the company I work for is APC Postal Logistics. We do a lot of good things. We've got a lot of really strong technology and a lot of good reasons to use us. But I
Mhm.
think what I bring to the table from the lessons that I've learned is I want to be your partner, because
Mhm.
if and you think about the real definition of a partnership, it's only successful when all of the entities, whether it's two or more, all of the entities get something positive out of it. So if
Yep.
I can make myself available to you with the tools that I have to help you be successful and bring you knowledge and information that'll help you in ways that I can't directly, you're going to be more successful. If you're more
Mhm.
successful, you're going to sell more stuff. If you're selling more stuff, you'll sell more internationally. If you're selling more internationally, hopefully you'll think of me as the person who's going to help you get that distributed. So it works
Yeah.
for everyone.
It does, and I can attest to the fact that you do apply that because while you and I have never directly done business over the last 5 years that we've known each other, we have kicked business to each other multiple times. Either through, "Hey, I'm looking for a 3PL in Canada. Do you have anybody?" On short notice. I'm almost always working on some sort of dumpster fire emergency situation, so I need quick, easy fixes. And you've always been there for me. And we have never necessarily, I've never necessarily bought a client to you and done a direct deal with you. And also I have sent people to you and said, "Hey, these guys are looking for some solutions. I think your
Mhm.
work." So I believe in that philosophy as well. And I think that builds a very strong network. And it builds a group of people that you can rely on when you're going to need them.
Yeah, I mean, I work hard to avoid transactional relationships, whether in my
Mm-hmm.
personal life or business life. They're
Mm-hmm.
short-lived. They're always one-sided, and
Always.
it's just there are better ways to do business and better ways to live your life that are more meaningful,
Yeah.
and it's worked out really well for me. Not that
Yeah.
there are other ways to do it, but this is how I.
Yeah. And it's worked for you. You're living in sunny Florida.
It's why
Kind of almost kicked back, not quite.
not yet.
Yeah, not yet. All right. Well, Mark, thank you for joining me today on the Morning Mood. I very much appreciate your walk down parcel lane in the history of how we got here. And you're right, a lot of this happened in the last 15 years, which is shocking if you think about it. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your story. And I appreciate you sharing with us your biggest lesson learned and how you applied it to your success. So, to my
Very
audience,
well.
thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Mark. To my audience, thank you for tuning in. I am excited that you were here to hear from Mark and what he had to say. And I will talk to you tomorrow.